Hi, everybody. Welcome to the denskilmusic podcast or stream, first stream, I should say. We've got no viewers as of yet, but that's okay. I'd like to introduce my two guests on this inaugural episode. One is Guitar Hack, and the other is Sean from Hello Companion. Welcome, gentlemen.
How's it going?
Hey.
Good, good. So right now we've got 0 viewers, but that's okay. We'll just keep trucking along.
Can make a few edits or whatever after it's on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. Get the crowd noises going and everything. Live studio audience.
Yeah.
So this is my personally my first live stream. I've been on live streams before with Hack, but none. I haven't run any of myself. So this is the maiden voyage, and there's a couple special announcements that I have, which will sort of be the kickoff for our discussion. So basically, the first announcement is that my album Stringmanship is now available on Bandcamp. The whole album is available there, all 12 songs. You can stream parts of it on Spotify and Apple Music, but I put the whole thing together onto Bandcamp just because of the fact that the revenues go directly to the artist, and I kind of support Bandcamp as a platform as well. Sean, I know you're a big fan of Bandcamp as well, and you use it to discover music. So I chose that platform in terms of putting my music out there. And that's kind of the kickoff of our discussion here, which is the concept of putting out albums and sort of how people consume music. I'm real happy to put out music and do it, just for my own satisfaction and enjoyment. But today we're going to talk about what's the point of putting out albums these days, considering how people consume music. And so it's a big topic and a heavy concept. But I've got two gentlemen on here who are fellow musicians and music fans, musicos themselves. And I'll just give a quick intro here to Guitar Hack. For those that don't know, is my brother and a famous YouTube celebrity already.
Yeah.
And Hack has his own channel, and we do some music and we put it up there as well. So Hack, welcome to the first live stream.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Right on, right on. Thanks for joining. Hopefully, we'll get some fans over here. And Sean, say hi. How are you doing?
I'm good. You might know me from all of the social media that I'm on, which is nothing.
Looks like we got one viewer so far. That's cool. So Sean's a bass player and a member of Hello Companion, which is a band that I belong to as well. And having said that, we just lost our one viewer, so that's good.
They must hate Hello Companion.
No kidding, eh? The music is so offensive. But we'll get the discussion going here on what's the point of albums these days. Who wants to start?
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, who are we talking about? Guys like us putting up stuff, or established artists putting up stuff? Because it really depends, right? I mean, if you're talking about an established artist, they have to put out product, and and usually they put out product and then they go and they tour, and the revenue doesn't come from the product; it comes from the touring. But they want to play new material and they want to keep growing the audience. They're going to keep putting out product. That's kind of how the cycle, before the cycle used to be. You would put out an album, the album would sell a bunch, and then that would kind of support the tour. Now the album doesn't mean anything. It's just a bunch of new songs. And the way people consume music nowadays, they don't consume albums, they consume singles. Hey Dale, how are you, man? And it's kind of like that. So it's, but for guys like us, it's really I mean, because we're not part of that whole cycle, obviously. We just do it because we love it. It's the same question could be, why do you play guitar?
Mm.
You do because you love it. And then the byproduct of that is maybe writing music. Byproduct of that, maybe, putting out some music. It's because you like doing it. There's no financial reward at all. I've got like $10 on DistroKid at this point. I mean, it's just because we love doing it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think? Hello Companion is about to put out new music. What's the point?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Hack just said about kind of the process and basically, and you kind of broke it down to established and non-established. And I'd also say that there's also a lot of people who aren't so established, but maybe they tour around and have some fan bases, and they also have to put stuff on Bandcamp too, or release music in any way. And even like I love vinyl, love being able to put on a record and listen to like a side or two or whatever. But a lot of times, yeah, you're just listening to songs here and there. So it is hard to kind of get that album concept across as an artist because people just aren't doing it that way. But yeah, putting stuff out because you love doing it. We all love making music, and hopefully some people hear it and like it. I mean, that's really as much as you could hope for, unless you're Metallica or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's some folks that, some bands out there that just put out album after album. Like they're almost good for an album a year or every couple of years. And, AC/DC comes to mind. They put out an album not too long ago. And, even AC/DC jokes about how they keep putting out the same album over and over again. Iron Maiden keeps putting out albums and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they're not every year now. AC/DC puts one out about every 5 years. I mean, they really spread it out because the established artists are, I mean, and some of them aren't even bothering. They're like, you know what? We put out new material. Nobody's going to listen to it. They're going to come to the shows. They want to hear the hits. So for them, it's a lot of them just don't even bother.
Which is too bad.
Yeah.
It is. Sorry, Heck, go ahead.
And then you get sometimes the reason that they don't is because they literally they just dried up. Their creativity is dried up, and when they do put out stuff, it's never as good as what they put out. There's exceptions to that. Judas Priest being one of them. Actually, Alcatraz last record was good too, but yeah. So there's that too. It's. I mean, getting back to the established artists, or even if you're not an established artist, like you were saying, Sean, you get a fan base here and there, whatever. The revenue stream is the shows. It's the shows and selling merch. That's what it is. And if the merch is a CD, sure, but it's really just about playing shows. So the music is just so that if you want to know what you're going to hear before you hear it, kind of thing. But it's not really a revenue stream anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you compare and contrast, like say bands like U2, or even at the extreme side, a band like Tool that puts out an album every, I don't know, 10 years, 15 maybe. Sean, what do you think? Is that about this band for Tool?
They were every 5 years until they were 13.
Right. And
which as a Tool fan is, crazy.
Yeah.
But actually, that's an interesting example because they had put out their most recent album 2 years ago, and that was one of the first when I was buying stuff on Bandcamp. But that was one of the first ones where I bought like on a commercial digital site, hdtracks.com. But I don't have HD equipment, but the format that they were selling, their physical release, was like an $80 multimedia package, and I just didn't want to fork out that money. I just wanted to hear the music, so I downloaded it from the hdtracks.com. And I was actually thinking the other day, in terms of we're talking about revenue, Bandcamp goes directly to the artist minus like a processing fee basically. But like for HD Tracks or iTunes or whatever, like, do these major label bands have like agreements where they sell a certain number of downloads that are available, or like do they just get a cut of everything that happens? Like I really don't understand how that works, because it's not like you go to the record store and you buy a CD that's already paid for by the distributor or something.
Right.
Yeah, this online stuff the revenue is really bizarre.
Yeah. It sure is, and I mean it's very it's like micro pennies is what it seems to break down to when you consider the amount of listens that people take, say, on a big track on Spotify, and divide that by all the bull crap basically, and that's like a tenth of a penny in the artist's pocket, which is kind of why I refuse to put my whole album out on Apple Music or on Spotify and everything like that. Like, people can listen to it, but if you actually want to buy it, you got to go to Bandcamp to get the full thing, which I'll keep shilling throughout this throughout this call here, guys.
And I really agree with that approach as well. I think that's a good approach. Like, I don't, just out of whatever, I don't use Spotify. I just prefer to have the digital things that I can put on a playlist or put on an album, choose what I want to listen to in that way, as opposed to just like random stuff on Spotify, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of getting your stuff, you're getting your ideas down is one thing, but then getting it out there is also intimidating. I still believe in albums. I mean, obviously, I just put one out, and I agree with you guys. I think they're really just like a vehicle or like a ticket into a band. Bands nowadays, like, you add the letter R, and they're not bands, they're brands. So they're, they make their money off T-shirts and lifestyle crap, and like they're selling, hot sauce and whatever else, right? It's got nothing to do with the music, which, I mean, in some ways, you could argue, does it cheapen the experience or does it commercialize it? For me, I don't care. I just listen to the music and enjoy it for what it is. But when you think of the huge marketing engine behind some bands, like, you could literally call them Budweiser bands, right? Their tickets are paid for by massive sponsorship and ticket sales at shows. So, I mean, does that really have anything to do with the music, or is it just a completely separate world? Like, do you guys give a crap?
You're talking about like the integrity of the artist.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go see like Judas Priest, I couldn't care less as long as I'm looking at Judas Priest and they're playing songs that I know. I don't really care about stuff like that. I mean, if you want to be like a purist, socks and sandals and all that, and then, I mean, the fact that the guy's even charging tickets is offensive. You know what I mean? So it's yeah. I mean, they're there to make money. It's music business. So that's the business part of it. So however they want to do that, however they want to, what tour support they have, sponsorships, all that, they're going to sell merch. That's, it's part of the business part of it. I mean, you're there for the music and the band. How, what's responsible for getting them there? Personally, I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with that. It'd be different if, I mean, advertising's everywhere all the time. I don't know if you guys have been watching TV at all lately. You're watching a show, the commercials are on, and then there's additional commercials when the show is on. So if I went to a concert and they're going to show me commercials, say, of the sponsor, then that might perhaps change my opinion of what's actually going on here. Because then it's not about music, then it's more about not even branding. It's just about this kind of mass marketing by these giant corporations that I just don't really care for, because it just feels insulting.
Yeah, there's I mean, there's something to be said about, the old hippie days of passing a hat around, at pay what you want to see an artist play, and they're playing for the for the passion of it. But then, music is also entertainment, right? So there's, the entertainment part of it, like, is same as if you would pay your money to go see a movie or a sporting event, right? You gotta bring some money to be entertained. So there's that aspect of it. And if back when there were shows and I'd see bands playing, or if I was playing and there was another band playing and I liked them, I would go out of my way to buy a CD or something like that, or look them up online, um, regardless of whether they were sponsored or penniless or whatever. So I kind of agree with you guys. I could really give a rat's ass if my favorite band in the world is sponsored, or really heavily promoted or super popular. It wouldn't affect me. But that being said, there is, I guess, in terms of what I value in music and an artist, is someone that's worked hard and has some discipline and worked their way up through the ranks, as opposed to these some pop artists that are manufactured or parachuted on us from the media authorities, right? Because if I'm looking at an album, or if I'm looking at a band or something like that, I kind of do my research a little bit. I like to find out, is the music written by the band? Is it played by the band? Or is it like a team of writers and a team of producers? Some people don't give a crap. Like, I'll use John Mayer as an example right now, because he's a great, musician and guitar player, but I don't think he writes his own songs. Like, it's all team written, right? And at the end of the day, doesn't matter. A good song's a good song, right? Hey, Quentin.
And good musicians too. I know for a fact.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't comment on the songwriting. I'm not sure about that, but he has this kind of known session bass player that I follow on social media, actually, called Sean Hurley, and he kind of goes in and lays down some like real bass guitar for John Mayer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time, and I ask this question to you guys. I have a hard time taking off my musician hat when I'm listening to music.
Sure.
Does that happen to you, Hack?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, if we bring in, you start talking about pop artists, or basically the Menudos of the world, right? That's a that's kind of a non-starter. I mean, I'm gonna put my old guy pants on and say, if you can't play an instrument, and you can't sing and you can't write and whatever, then you're no different to me. You're no different than an actor who's fed his lines. Like, you're a puppet. That's what you are. I shouldn't say actor, because that involves some skill, but I'm saying, like, you're a puppet, basically.
They are called meat puppets, or they used to be.
Meat puppet. Yeah, that's what you are, right? I mean, if you can dance really good, well, then you're a dancer. You're not a musician. You're a terrific dancer, and that is also very skillful. But that's not a musician. That's a whole other thing. I like people that can play their own, that can play their own instruments. I go. It's Beatles school for me. I mean, these guys play their own stuff, wrote their own stuff. And I mean, did they rely heavily on George Martin because they weren't, classically trained? Sure. But the ideas and the concepts were theirs, and, but that's kind of my old school mentality when it comes to stuff like that. That being said, if you dig, there are some, which maybe fairly or unfairly are labeled pop artists out there that are actually talented, Lady Gaga being one of them, right? So, there are some people out there that can do that. But yeah, I mean, if I don't consider programming a beat on a drum machine or whatever, and then hitting two keys on a keyboard, I don't consider that music. But that's my old guy showing, get off my lawn, right? But so yeah, that's sort of my, where I draw the line between musician and that. So do I listen to stuff as a guitar player? Yeah. And that's because of that. I don't listen to any of that stuff because it's just not, there's no music. There's nothing there to listen to. So.
Yeah. Sean, what's your take, man? Are you a big fan of musicianship and instrumentalism, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean, my background growing up playing was like progressive rock and kind of the 70s people that I love, and fusion jazz and all this stuff. But as someone who's a fan of electronic music, the programming of beat and playing a few notes, it can be as simple as that, but sometimes you listen to some of the stuff people make and you're like, that's just like an impossible idea that they were able to pull off. But I mean, that's just my opinion on it. There's certainly a lot of let's say people, like, I'm no good with technology really. Like, I can plug my guitar into my computer and play, and that's about it. But there's a lot of people out there now who can do that, and they use the internet to do it. So they're kind of getting exposure out there. When in the old days, that, you know, it was, we maybe thought that there was the cream rising to the top or whatever, whereas nowadays it's just everyone's at the bottom working their way up. So if they can make a beat and put a few notes together and get famous on TikTok, that's how it's going. Which is really insane.
It's par for the course these days, though. Like, with the advent of internet and all that, it's pretty much leveled the playing field for everyone to get in. And, you know, us guitar, I got a good comment from Dale there.
I just saw that's awesome.
And Dale's right. We do have to accept people prefer electronic music. You know, they grew up in different times and, you know, have different goggles and different values. You know, I personally, you know, I think the computers and the tools are just that, you know, and you can make a guitar, you can take a guitar and make crappy music out of it, you know, as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can do really clever and genius things with computers and drum machines too. It's just everything's magnified now, right? And you know, like now, you know, you can be some, you know, unknown person in some unknown place, you know, creating, you know, amazing stuff. But, you know, you're lost in the wash in the sea of everything else that's around, which is kind of, you know, let's put it this way, it's a little bit intimidating or depressing, right? But you still got to put your stuff out there to, you know, join the stream and hope that the almighty algorithm somehow either grabs you. I mean, that is if you want to be famous, you know, or if you just, you know, we're doing it for the passion, or if you just, you know, out there, like, for example, I put out my stuff just to have it out there, just to say, like, it's there. Like, if someone needs my resume or something like that, I can point them to that, sort of, you know, to my record or whatever, or my videos, just to have it kind of documented. It's like, I don't know if you guys ever met anybody that's written 20 books that no one's ever read. I have. So, you know, there's people out there that just put out stuff to have it out there and have it archived, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of finding the diamonds in the rough. But, you know, it begs for me, the question is, like, you know, we're talking about things like, you know, instruments and songwriting and everything like that. You know, are those things lost? Is it a lost art, or do people still value it? Because we, as guitar playing musicianal types, like, we can't compete with these MCs and these rappers and these TikTokers, right? But, like, is what we're doing, like, is it gone? Is it lost? Or is there a new generation out there that's going to take up the battle? Like, Prague is still kicking pretty good. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think kids are always going to pick up a guitar, you know, like, that's not going to go away for sure.
Yeah. I mean, everything what goes around comes around, right? I mean, was it 3 or 4 years ago? It's like guitar is dead or something was the big rallying cry, you know. And then over COVID, like, they're selling them like crazy now. Instruments are selling like crazy, that there's backlogs and they can't keep up with demand. So, you know, I mean, there are people still that want to play instruments, and, you know, as long as there's kids still want to hear like an AC/DC, or digging that groove or digging that sound, you know, or they're getting sampled in new music, whatever. So, you know, hey, what was that? I don't know. I think it'll keep going. I mean, I still see kids when I go to music stores. I still see kids, you know, and they're wanting to play an instrument. So, I think the pendulum maybe is swinging the other way. It's getting back to playing instruments and learning how to play, and let's call it the more traditional route of creating music. I think that's kind of going that way. But I mean, I don't have the stats to back it up. I just know you know, musically, what instruments are selling like crazy right now. So,
And like John Mayer's always been popular and in the forefront with his guitar. And then you have newer artists like her, who's like a guitar phenom and a pop sensation, but she is always playing the guitar or playing the piano, like really making it look. I don't want to say easy. It looks easy for her, but you can tell she just plays the crap out of what she's doing.
Yeah, super talented. Yeah, and I mean, there's the argument that Taylor Swift has sold more guitars than, Eddie Van Halen or close to it or something like that, right? No,
Yeah.
Eddie, that might be a tall order, but she's certainly sold a lot of guitars. And yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the same as it ever was. Hack made a good point about how things are cyclical, and like I remember when grunge blew up, it was like that brought the guitar right back into the forefront. There was a lot of, keyboardy, synthy type things, and we've seen that, those eras in bands we love, like ZZ Top and Rush, right? They kind of go with the times and adopt new technology as the times change, and they want to incorporate new sounds. Yeah, it's I don't think it's ever gonna end. And I've like you, Hack, I've seen some kids in music stores and just local neighborhood kids, and they're totally jacked on AC/DC and Guns N' Roses, and they wonder what's up with those Metallica shirts, and so it piques their interest and they slowly get into it, like seeing little kids rock out to Metallica, like, I think that's pretty cool. And
That makes me happy.
yeah, hopefully other kids are getting into it. And I mean, which brings me to my next point. I mean, going back, we're all kind of different ages, but I would say that, it's kind of the same as it ever was in terms of pop being, what it is, and, underground, music that we like being, maybe not as popular, but kind of cool and underground, and musicians sort of being their own cult. I think it's the same. I think it's the same now as it ever has been in that regards. Like when I was coming up, and I got interested in music and playing because I didn't like pop, and I didn't like necessarily what was trendy. I didn't get anything out of it. So I don't know. Do you guys think it's kind of the same thing, or has the internet just totally screwed us over and ruined everything for us?
I think rock is at its lowest point that it's been in probably the last 30 years in terms of popular music. I mean, back in the 90s, everybody knew who Nirvana was, everybody knew who Soundgarden was, and then if you look at that's the 90s, you look at the 2000s already, that that the rock thing started to come down, like in popularity, and I'm talking like mass radio and stuff like that. It kind of started to go away. And the people that the hardcore people that loved it then always love it, and I mean, usually it's musicians because they're playing music, that are going to follow that kind of music. So yeah, I think that kind of went away. But and blues is another one. Blues is like just hanging in there. And again, who listens to blues is musicians. Who listens to jazz? Who listens to progressive rock? It's musicians most of the time. So it's like that's what's keeping it sort of out there. But the whole internet TikTok thing right now, it's instant gratification, right? So I want a single, I want a 30-second video, and that's all I need to know about that. And that's why like the singles market is such a big thing, right? And because it's and the Spotify's and the like all that. Like I have a Spotify. I've got over 3,000 songs that I picked that I like, and that's what I play. I don't go to their playlist. I couldn't give a rat's ass what somebody else thinks. I want my music. So you can do that. And I kind of like that in the way that it's all stuff I like and it's all screwed up. I'll literally go from Larry Carlton to Pantera. That's the way I like it. I like it all mixed up.
Rock hard like devil horns to both of those, by the way.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the TikToks and all that, it's all like, it's like McDonald's, right? And a lot of the music that kind of, that suits that criteria, the like 30-second, is really McDonald's music. It's not like sitting down and listening to a Yes album. I mean, that takes a little bit of investment, and there's no time for investment now, with the internet and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. There really isn't, so which is another reason why I think the rock, at least with most, mass, AM, FM radio, I don't even know, except for the classic rock stations, a lot of that stuff's kind of sinking away because it's not conducive to the way people want to access things now.
Yeah. Quentin has a good question here in the chat about 80s being hair metal, 90s about grunge. What was the 2000s and the 2010s? That's a great question. Sean, what would be your answer for that? And how would you explain the proliferation and existence of bands today like Dream Theater? And have you heard of Thank You Scientist?
I have not heard of them.
Okay.
I would say, in terms of the question, the 2000s was like new metal.
Yeah.
And then 2010s in terms of rock, I'm really not sure. There's like people at the forefront, like say My Morning Jacket, a band I really like. They're not genre specific, I would say. I think you're really right, Hack. Like in terms of popularity of new bands, rock is really at a nadir, like it's really at the bottom. Mm-hmm. But then there's like, if you go to Bandcamp and you look at all this stuff, there's tons of rock around. So it's just getting it exposed. So in terms of the 2010s, I really wouldn't know what to say. There's been some great records made in that era. I'm a big fan of Mastodon. They put out a good album like every 3-4 years. They're 2010s, I guess. Dream Theater, now they're interesting because they have had a long career. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they came out of nowhere. They have a very loyal fan base who will take the time to really listen to their albums and stuff. And then at live, they always put on a great show and really do work hard to make their fans happy. So they did it the old school way, I'd say, like making the records, touring, trying to make the right business decisions, all this like the normal stuff that we're really not exposed to anymore because the record companies aren't involved.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There are a lot of DIY self-made, especially in the prog scene. Some bands that come to my mind that are sort of anomalies out there are bands like I mentioned. Thank You Scientist is one. Terra Melos is another one. Pliny and Jacob Zaiteki are two other artists that are sort of known to play together. And you could even throw in bands like Animals as Leaders, and that's getting kind of more into the genty sort of world.
Math rock and stuff.
Yeah, the math rock kind of thing, which still I would say is pretty underground and hasn't hit mass appeal levels. But I kind of hope it doesn't. I was one of those people, back in the day when one of my favorite underground bands got big and famous. I would be a little bit disappointed because that was the sure sign that a team of writers and producers would come in and, record companies would step in and start coaching them and counseling on their songwriting and, end up with watered down material because the record company would need, a hit, so to speak. And, there are artists out there like Frank Zappa that never gave a crap about mass appeal or commercialism. And, Prince is another one that you could argue that was making arguably commercial music, but just gave the big FU to the record companies. And I think for some reason, people with that kind of artistic integrity or artistic thing will get my dollar over someone that maybe won't. like I struggle to think of bands like, would Supertramp make it now? Would Rush make it now with their, super long songs and that kind of approach? They literally don't care about mass appeal, and still somehow end up getting it, which is kind of an anomaly, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the Dream Theater thing, it's not like they started making and releasing long songs last album. Like they've been doing it a long time and have already established themselves. So Dale was mentioning Greta Van Fleet. So they're also an interesting case because they are essentially Zeppelin copiers, but like for some reason they really do a good job of entertaining people.
Mhm.
So, there's got to be something there.
Well, and I mean, if they're playing for young people, it's like they've never seen a rock band, and that's their first exposure to rock. So that could be like, an entry point. Oh, these guys. Oh, Zeppelin. Oh, let's check out Zeppelin. It could be, that, which would be fantastic. Them getting into rock and discovering what real music is. But anyway, what I was gonna say too, like nowadays, rock has been so buried that you gotta search out new bands. Like you gotta look for it, like whether it's Bandcamp or whatever. It's not like you can listen to the radio and a song will come on. Like, who's that band? That doesn't happen anymore. I mean, there's some YouTubers that are out there and they're always promoting new CDs, new bands, and things that are coming out. That's going to be your resource. It's no longer mass media. It's no longer radio. It's no longer TV. It's like, because all you're going to hear is the same McDonald's crap. But if you want to, like, I mean, I've discovered Vintage Caravan as a band that I mentioned to you the other day, and these guys are phenomenal. Like good rock music, you have to dig for it. Either that, or the other thing that's happening is you start mining the past and start going, I'm gonna get into maybe some bands that I overlooked, 20, 30 years ago. But
Totally.
it all involves you digging, you actively searching it out, and it not just it being right in front of your face.
Yeah, like finding new old music, that's out there. Like the great example of that is the story of Nick Drake, who was not even famous when he was alive and put out 3 amazing albums in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Ended up passing away in the mid 70s, and then some car company put one of his songs on their commercial, and all of a sudden, boom, he's got millions of hits and album sales, and these poor guy's been passed away, 45 plus years. But people thought it was like stumbled onto it and thought it was some sort of new kind of cool, great sound, and just went for it. And it's almost like, to me, like, who's part of the new school that's going to be taking what was great back then and reinventing it and bringing it now? So you got, great bands like Beatles, Zeppelin, all these, Pink Floyd, all these bands with these epic songs, Supertramp, Queen. I could go on and on. I call them sort of the FM, AOR type bands, where even that terminology is outdated. But what I would say in terms of a product, it's like I could eat McDonald's, or I could go eat this nice, homemade steak sandwich, right? That's I want the nice homemade steak sandwich, right? So that's kind of what will appeal to me, in terms of a band. And bands like Greta Van Fleet can be a gateway band for other bands. So I guess to turn the discussion on its ears, like, I know, Hack, you don't like the playlists and stuff, but if I know of a band, say like Tame Impala, and I go and I listen to them, I might come across Pink Floyd along that journey. And I think the way people consume music now is they're pretty lazy. Spotify, click on artists, play random or whatever, and then they work out or they do whatever to it. There's less effort involved, and I think you made the point great, Hack. You gotta dig for that good stuff that's out there. You gotta seek it out and find it. but I still think it's out there.
Oh yeah,
It's just a matter of seeking it out and
it's
finding
out,
it.
and it'll be bands you never heard of, and
Yeah,
they'll be like, I mean, Vintage Caravan. I think they're Norwegian or something. Like
Icelandic
it'll,
or something. Yeah,
yeah, it'll be, it'll be all this. I mean, it's just you really got to search it out, and you're never going to hear that stuff on the radio, or at
right.
least So yeah, and I mean, the internet and YouTube is a good resource for that because there's enough channels out there that are doing, talking about new music and reviews and stuff the Sea of Tranquility, for example,
Yeah,
new music and new releases that are coming out, and and it's stuff that if you're looking for new music and they keep saying, hey, you're complaining there's no new good rock, check these guys out. And then, I mean, I've discovered a lot of bands through that site. So yeah.
yeah. I rely on folks like yourself and Sean to hook me up with new bands, other musicians, and friends that I play with. Just word of mouth is kind of how I've always done it.
A new old band that I just discovered that just is blowing my mind is Armored Saint. I never gave them the time of day, and that's a great band.
No kidding.
Armored Saint.
I'll have
They
to
will
check 'em out.
surprise you. Yeah.
Sean, you got any olden goldies that you're popping these days?
I'll tell you. So a band that I really wish I'd gotten into as a kid but didn't, and now I love are the Stone Temple Pilots. So I'd say musically they're the most close to what I would imagine myself doing, I guess, if you want to put it in a way. So rediscovering that music, or discovering it for the first time after sort of being minorly exposed to it is really awesome. Because in those days you had to buy all the music. So if I, buy a tape or a CD, I pretty much wanted to buy something that I already knew, or like a band I already knew. So it was kind of hard to just pick up and try random stuff like Bandcamp, YouTube. You can sample stuff, or Spotify, you pay and then you can listen to whatever you want. It's a different world.
It is, and I think there's huge advantages of that. Like if I want to check out a band, I'll check them out on Spotify first before I go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the try before you buy kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty convenient. But for myself, I've been going back and discovering bands like Japan and New Order and Flock of Seagulls and
the new wave that you were so against.
I really disliked the new wave music for a long time, but
The Vapors turning Japanese, and then they got another song that's really good, 60 seconds or something, 60-second interval or something.
Yeah,
oh man, it's such a good song.
I've been consuming mass quantities, which is another old school reference there, of the Cars. I've been listening to lots of David Bowie's Berlin trilogy, which is kind of the start of a lot of new wave stuff, from the late 70s. And
that's how I got into more electronic stuff, was from listening to the Berlin trilogy and saying like, oh, he likes Kraftwerk, I better start listening to Kraftwerk.
Yep. Yeah, just seeing what's out there, right? And
Gary Newman, if you like Kraftwerk, Gary Newman.
Yeah.
Newman's awesome.
Crazy synth pop stuff going on there. Lots of textures and layers.
I got all his early records are just amazing. I love Gary Newman.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that there's room for everybody in the music thing in the scene these days. It seems like we've gone from like 2D to like 3D to like 4D HD vision right now, where the table is spread out across the planet now. Like there's so much music to pick from to enjoy. But I mean, whether you go new or old, I don't think there's been a better time to be a music fan or a musician, just in terms of sheer quantity and quality of exposure.
And not having to line up for 3 days to catch your favorite band live. I mean, no one's seeing live right now, but I mean, I guess I probably would have lined up for 3 days to see Rush or Zeppelin, but I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the days of certain acts traveling and touring are getting like, even forget the pandemic. I mean, just the age of some of these bands, and the musicians in them. Like, oh boy, you better see them
I better
before
see
they're
him now.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, knock on wood. Hack and I got to see Rush on their farewell thing, and like,
which I didn't, and I'll regret forever now.
and who knew that was going to be their actual farewell?
Hmm.
Back then. But do you want to see the Stones nowadays, or AC/DC? Even ZZ Top now without Dusty, like
Those
those
ZZ
guys,
Tops.
they just hit the road. They just kept going, right?
Yeah.
And without Dusty. So yeah, I think in the next 10, 15 years we're going to see a big. We've already seen huge losses, and we'll continue to see them. And then who's left to take up the chains? Like I was.
I never thought about it that way because there's a lot of artists coming up, a lot of great artists that love to play rock, but they're not at the level that these bands that we know and love are at, or will they'll probably never be there, like to have
Yeah.
the mainstream mass exposure.
Yep. Yep.
Hey, Blackjack Guitar. Yeah, like I mean, most of my heroes are anywhere from very late 60s to, late 70s now, and they're slowly going, dropping, right? Dusty Hill, Charlie Watts most recently, and yeah, like if these guys are out now, and if you ever wanted to see them, now's the time to see them, right? Before they're, like, but and some bands are like they they may only have two or three guys, or maybe even two, that were there in the heyday, but you just got to make that call. Is it worth it to go check out that band or whatever? Yeah, and ACDC, I'm pretty sure they're going to go out again. They're going to do it again.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of ACDC, I'm doing a show on Wednesday, top 5 ACDC records. I started going through their catalog. You know what? Their albums don't all sound the same. Listen to Ball Breaker. Like they actually evolved as songwriters, and they've got some pretty cool textures and things going on there. So anyway, I just threw that in.
Yeah.
But
No, that's cool.
you got to see them now because they're you guys are younger, so your heroes are probably subtract 10 from what I was just saying. But you may have a couple opportunities, but guys my age, we don't have many more to see them.
Yeah, I mean, post that particular era, like we're looking at bands like U2 and like who else? Metallica. They're up there. They're getting there.
They're still relatively on Metallica.
But like big franchise bands that are.
Yeah, I'm thinking more bands like Priest, Rolling Stones, Kiss. Who else?
Well,
Still
take even a band like Bon
AC/DC.
Jovi, right?
Oh,
Not really a rock. I'm not a fan, but I'm just talking bands that were popular posts.
yeah, those are 80s bands. Yeah,
Yeah, it's and much like Dale's mentioned here in the comments, having lost the desire to see most of these aging bands.
yeah.
There a lot of them can't put the same out, put out the same kind of energy and show like.
But, yeah.
So you want to, maybe you're risking some disappointment. And
Unless you know that going in, like
yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
saw Black Sabbath, the End tour, and with Ozzy, and I think Ozzy was singing with a different band because he was, I don't know, he wasn't in key the whole night. But I was just okay. Ignore Ozzy. I'm just looking at the master, Tony Iommi. I just
Yeah.
focus on that. Forget that Ozzy's even in the building. That was really unfortunate. But you know what? That's what's happening now. Some of them just can't do it.
I think that was a bad show for him. I'd seen them a few years earlier when they'd kind of started their 13 tour,
Mhm.
and Ozzy was in top form. So
Oh.
I think he was just having a bad night. I mean, they're tuned down, but a lot of his vocals are still. Sorry, he sings high. He sang high in the 70s.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know,
Yeah. And
not
I
to
mean,
defend him or anything. Just
No, it was so disappointing, right? I'm like, man, come on. You know.
yeah, and it's like a lot of these bands have limited gas and limited time in the tank. So, you know, you go and see them on some sort of casino rama tour, and it's like maybe, you know, it 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 sets you up for disappointment in some ways. But you know, in other artists, you don't ever want to see them stop or leave. Like, you know, they're gone too early, like Bowie and Prince. And you know, there's artists out there that I'm just like, I kind of check on them, you know, like once a month I do a Google search to see if they're still going, right?
Well,
Yeah.
I was talking about this the other day, and not that I wish it upon him, but I think the biggest one that's going to impact most people is Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
His day comes, that's going to be like a week of mourning.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know.
Definitely. It's
I'd say Jimmy Page too.
oh yeah.
At least on the musician side.
On the musician side, yeah. I'm but like mass appeal side,
Globally.
Completely agree.
be Paul. Yeah, Jimmy Page. Well, Jimmy Page is like my favorite guitar player in the world. Yeah, that one will hit pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, you don't want to see it happen, but it's sort of an inevitability in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So next topic here I'll just bring up here, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, is you know, a little bit about the revivalist movement and things like that. You know, every once in a while, like things like swing music or bluegrass or, you know, whatever becomes popular, you know, punk or whatever. The other day, actually, it was about 2 weeks ago, I saw a YouTube rig rundown where from Premier Guitar, and the featured artist was a young lady. And what was notable about the, um, the the review there, the rig rundown, was that I copped that she was wearing bell bottoms. And then a bunch of the other folks in her band were all kind of done up in sort of that old throwback 70s regalia thing, which I thought it was remarkable because not that I know the first thing about fashion, it's an alien thing to me, but I was surprised to see that. And you know, I'm thinking like there already was a 70s revival back in the 90s, right? But it could be coming back again. So, you know, we could see, you know, bell bottoms and crop tops and whatever, you know, go-go boots and Austin Powers all over again, kind of thing. And so, you know, fashion often goes with hand in hand with music and everything like that. Um, so I saw the bell bottoms again. My question to you guys is, have you seen them, and would you be looking forward to seeing them again and the associated revival?
I haven't seen any, but I think that's cool. I can't pull them off, but I wear my leather jacket a couple of times a year. That's about it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I mean, the 70s, like Lenny Kravitz was a big 70s revivalist guy back in the 90s, and actually he was doing the bell bottoms thing back then, if I remember correctly. But, you know, and I think Prince pulled it off too back then. But yeah, I know I haven't seen it currently. And I mean, you know, it's like everything else, right? Fashion, you know, it just keeps revolving, right? It'll come back. 80s will come back. 90s will come back. Plaid will come back, you know.
All that stuff is back.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, big baggy clothes and plaid shirts around the waist. Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's like a
Yeah.
90s revival almost, in a way.
Yeah, no, it is. It's more of a 90s revival, but those things, the plaid and stuff, yeah, it's back big time.
Yeah, there you go. Just what I know. Yeah.
You know, that's interesting. Now, I guess so. Would you guys welcome a revival of any kind, a 70s revival, or would you want to see the next thing happen based on how things are right now?
I mean, for my own thing, like most of my records are 70s records. Like whenever I'm listening to a record, I'm basically in the 1970s anyway. So I don't really need to see a revival of it per se. I mean, if people want to start doing that on a more fashion level and certainly playing music, yeah, that's totally fine by me, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, if they did music, 70s music, that's though where there was actually harmony and chord voicings and things like that, where music was music, I'd be all over that. Yeah. I don't know if you guys listen to yacht rock or what they call yacht rock, but I love that stuff.
It's great.
I mean, Gordon Lightfoot, James.
He's yacht rock?
That's the category they all got lumped into.
Wow, okay. Wouldn't think of Gordon Lightfoot as yacht rock, but okay, cool.
Folk, maybe singer-songwriter, whatever. Anyways, but like all that stuff back then, man, it just the sophistication in the chords, voicings, and the harmonies, and all of that. Like, if music went back to that, I'd be all over it. Is that's why that stuff is so good. I mean, I'm trying to remember the other guy's name now. Anyways, but yeah, I love that stuff.
Steely Dan had some Steely Dan on last night at a party I was at, and like the mid to late 70s, where they just had we're talking about Larry Carlton, they just had these amazing guys on. Just listening back, and it's just like, to be in that moment, if you're the session musician, to play all those notes perfectly, and to be directed in such a way to just play in this unbelievably tight and precise fashion. It's just kind of unbelievable, because you can do that now with computers and stuff like we were talking about. But like having that as a human being playing something so precise and yet so accessible and worthy of your ears it's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, all that great music, I mean, it was all done in the studio. I mean, Led Zeppelin, Rush, Yes, all that stuff. I mean, what those guys were pulling off, it's like, oh my man, like, and now it's like, that's the thing that, like, I would love to see that level of musicianship and creativity. If that's what, having the 70s come back, if that's what it means, I'm all over that. Would love that.
There's something about the 70s that really, I'll make a joke or pun, dad joke here, hit a chord. In terms of, like, you had awesome musicianship, you had awesome songs, awesome performers, right? Like that's like a great trifecta there.
Mass access to vinyl, to music as well. Like that was kind of when it really became accessible to everyone.
Yeah, totally. And like mini malls and things like that with record stores in them, and magazines and things like that, spreading the word of new music and media around. So,
and it was played on the radio, so you were aware of it.
Yep, absolutely, and that's what everybody had. And so, word of mouth was a lot stronger back then, and carried some meaning and value with it. But I prefer to stay optimistic and think that, just because of the way things are these days, it's still worth it. It's still worth putting out music. Still, enjoyable to see real songs played by real musicians. We might be in the minority, but
I don't think so.
No,
not of our age demographics anyway.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, Sean, that's a fair point. That's a fair say. Well, with that being said, guys, we got just a couple minutes left. We'll wrap things up here. I want to thank both of you guys for joining my first stream here. We'll go to Hack first. Hack, you got anything coming up that you want to promote or talk about?
I'm doing a live show Wednesday at 12:30 in the afternoon, 12:30 Eastern. It's myself and Martin Popoff, and we are discussing our 5 favorite AC/DC records. So that'll happen Wednesday, and then after that, I don't know when the next live thing is. But
didn't he just release 3 books about Rush, like their different kind of eras and stuff?
I have all 3.
Awesome.
He's put out he's He's done a lot. He's got a lot of books out. If you go to his website, at pretty much any band that you would think about, he's probably written a book on them. Yeah, he's a really nice dude, and he's local. He's in Toronto, so yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, I don't know what else is coming up. I guess that's it. But I usually put out something every, once a week, twice a week. But and Happy Song is my latest. It's on all the streaming services. It's also on my channel on Guitar Hack Topic, which is YouTube created a second channel for me with just my music. It's all out there as well. So check it out.
Right on. Thanks.
Commercial done.
Shilling complete. Sean, anything you want to talk about to promote or anything you're working on?
Not really musically, kind of in the mire a little bit. We have some recordings with Hello Companion that are kind of in the process. We're going to hopefully have them done and released maybe by the end of this year or early next year. Really hard to say. Shows around town, Toronto, it's really hard. And no one really knows what's going to happen with the next wave or whatever's going on. My swim team's getting back, so hopefully be in the water soon and lose some of that pandemic weight. That's about it.
Cool. Good stuff, buddy. Yeah, well, again, thanks guys so much for joining. My name is Denskil. So just a couple things to chill out here. One is my album Stringmanship is available at Bandcamp as a complete album. Available for $5, 12 songs. Two songs are on there that aren't available anywhere else. And the other quick announcement that I have is I have a new song that is being mixed right now, and should it maybe be out by end of day, if not first thing tomorrow, and there'll be a video with that as well. So already working on some new music in the next project, and looking forward to putting out albums, whether they fit on vinyl or not. Want to thank you guys for joining into this live broadcast here, first live stream ever. Thank you everybody for watching. Thanks again, Sean and Hack. We'll sign off now, guys, and hopefully we'll see you guys on another live stream in the future.
For sure. It was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Cheers.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.